welcome you all to this week's episode of Ducking Reality. Today we have a friend of mine from one of the bars I work at. I've had so many interesting conversations with him, and his life has been fascinating. And every time we kind of delve into it, I get to learn a little bit more. And you're so low-key and relaxed, Tom, that I don't even think that you told me some of the kind of what I would have hit as thought were like the highlights of your life. It's been like Irish John walking by and dropping a little nugget and then keep going.
Well,
you're very...
I don't know. I try not to talk too much about the highlights or
Yeah.
the lowlights.
But you're very humble about all your accomplishments.
You know, I've had a really good run, I think, and I've met so many people. And I don't mean because I necessarily worked with them. I just came in contact with them and got to shake their hands, and it's just been amazing. I started a list years ago that I've lost, and I try to think about it and recreate it, but it pops up all the time. I see stuff in the paper and on TV, and I go, geez, I met that person once, you know?
Okay.
I don't know why that is. That's just something that seems to happen to me. It's like, what was Zelig? Was that the Woody Allen movie, the character that appeared in all these different important parts of history? But anyway.
So tell us, how did your story start? Because you're here in Alameda, but you've lived all over.
Right. Well, I'm an East Coast guy. I was born in Connecticut. I worked 30 years in Manhattan. And through, I guess, good planning and good luck, I was able to get moved to California right at the period where a house was being sold, a divorce was being completed, and I was given sole custody of my 3 young children. And I wanted to get them out of there.
Oh.
And so I worked for an advertising company in New York at that time, a part of Gray Advertising, G2, and done a project for them that had worked out. They were happy with me. The Aetna Medicare site, I think that's what it was, Aetna Medicare.
Oh, wow.
It was a big site. It was a complicated thing. And my boss was in his office one day, and he managed production delivery for all their offices around the United States, which there were about a half a dozen of them, maybe more. But San Francisco was all screwed up. And he didn't know what to do about it. And I saw this sort of timeline in my head about the house, the divorce, the kids being my responsibility. And I said, oh, I'll do that. I'd love to go out to San Francisco and try to fix what's wrong in the office out there.
There you go.
And I never did that. The office folded in about 8 months. And he said, do you want to come back? God bless him. And but I didn't. I had my kids out here. They were in school. Everything had been moved out at the company's expense.
That's nice.
And they were going to give me a nice runway. They were like, okay, well, if you don't come back, you know, they gave me insurance for, 5 or 6 months for me and my family and a couple of months of pay. And they gave me a good runway. And so I just started hustling around San Francisco, trying to get work, similar work.
Right.
And I was really fortunate because I had worked for a small startup digital company in New York called Touchscreen Media Group in the early 90s and mid-90s. I was there for about 5 or 6 years. It started by these 2 young people that were friends of mine. One guy had been my sales rep at a post-production facility, and the other woman was out of IBM or something. And we were acquired by a company in Bethesda, Maryland. And some of the team members that came up and interviewed us and evaluated our relative value and everything else and negotiated the deal had ended up at Wells Fargo in San Francisco in property management. And one of them was a friend. He said, well, you need a job. I'll give you a job.
That's always
I'll
nice.
give you a job. And I said, okay, what do I do? And he said, I don't know. We're going to do this and that. We got plans for the next couple of years. We got to start all the planning. Everything moves in this glacial way in the world of banking technology. It's not like advertising or television. And so I went to work for Charles, and I think I'd come to the office, which was right on Market Street. I was taking the ferry boat over from Alameda at that point. We had landed in Marin, but I had to move us out of Marin because the school sucked and I wasn't making enough money.
Oh.
And or at the time, I thought. And I was on Market Street there, and it was just a great life. You know, I had commuted on trains out of Grand Central Station for 18 years, and this was just commuter heaven. Had a bar car, had everything. Had everything.
Yeah, the ferry is a good time. Part of me is like, oh, maybe I should work at least one day in SF
great.
just to take this ferry every day.
I made friends there, and I'm really grateful to the people I met on the ferry. That's another story. But anyway, I went to work for Charles, and we go out to lunch, and he says, "Look, I'm going to have open heart surgery. I'm going to be gone for like 5 months," and I didn't have anybody else to report to.
Right.
I didn't have any other bosses, and he said, "Do you work with this woman in Charlotte and this person, and work on that project, and just build the PowerPoint slides and run the meetings and do all that?" And I said, "Okay." So that was it. I worked for them for 18 months on that gig. I had 3 different contracts with Wells Fargo, and that sustained me. I made more money in that 18 months than I'd made in the whole year with the advertising company in New York.
Oh wow!
And it just got us going. We got settled in. I've been in the same house for 14 years here in Alameda, and it was just really good luck for me. Really good luck. So
that's kind of a theme in your life.
A lot of good luck, some bad luck, but a lot of good luck. I didn't marry very well, but I was lucky. I was lucky. I did a lot of crazy stuff when I was a kid. A lot of crazy stuff. My father died when I was about 14, I think, and
Wow.
I'm one of 3 brothers, 3 sons. I'm the middle one, and my mother, God bless her, was like, didn't really know how to handle me. And, she kind of just sort of said, "Well, I want you to do this." And I said, "Well, if I do that, then I get to do this." And I negotiated this whole life. And I kept up my end of the bargain, and she kept up her end of the bargain. And so I would paint a house and make some money. And when I was 15, I got with a friend of mine, 2 friends of mine, we got Euro passes and airline tickets and went to Europe.
At 15?
I was 15.
Wow.
And I had like $400 in cash in my pocket. Maybe at the time that was more than enough money. And, did all this crazy, stuff.
Wow.
Running with the bulls in Pamplona and renting a fourth of some grungy apartment with these Africans in Paris. And I just had fun. I just had a lot of fun.
How long did you go for?
I was gone for... I think 6 or 7 weeks.
Wow.
And it was interesting the way the trip ended. I had come back, I had taken the train, you travel first class on the trains with these Euro passes. And I had been in Lisbon, Portugal. And I was coming back to London where I was going to meet up with my mother and younger brother. And we were going to all go home together on this date. And I got there early. I was 10 days early, but I had friends I'd made in London, and I wanted to hang out in London. And so, subway pulled in from the train station. I took the subway to Leicester Square for some reason. And I had a kind of big wallet that had my passport and all my contacts and my money. And it was this thing that was, fit into my pack in a really secure place. And I opened it up on the platform in front of this phone, and I didn't have the right coin. And I turned around to get the coin from the guy right there, and when I turned back, it was all gone.
Oh, wow.
And so I had nothing in London there. I had the change in my pocket. I had my pack, but I had no ID. I had no money. I had no passport. I had nowhere to go, no numbers to call. Everybody from home was over there, it seemed. And so I spent about 10 days living on the streets of London and sleeping in the parks and going to revival meetings in the morning to get a tea and a donut and stuff like that, and panhandling and doing whatever I could to survive it. And I just kept repeating the name of the hotel that I knew my mother was going to be in. And I went to the American Embassy and everything. They couldn't do anything for me. They were like, "Man, yeah, good luck. Well, I hope you make it till your family shows up."
Wow.
And that was a life-changing thing. That really changed my whole view about living rough like that, and how that happens to people in life.
That's a big lesson.
I look back and I go, that was a lucky experience. Yeah, at the time it didn't seem so lucky.
No, not at all. It must have been scary.
It was scary. But nothing happened to me. I didn't get robbed, or I wasn't robbed.
You did get robbed, but just that first day.
I didn't get killed. So,
yeah.
But I guess that was lucky. I think it does. When I look back, I say I was lucky.
I would say so, yeah. 15 alone broke in London.
Yeah. And the other part of the deal was that I came back and I went to a school like in this Giamatti movie now that's up for the Academy Award. It was this prep school in upstate New York with the Episcopalian school with the ties and the jackets and all these idiots. But that was a deal. And I went there for my junior year of high school. I was not invited back.
Oh, you were a really rebellious kid, huh?
I was a good hockey player. They loved me. They loved me. I was a good hockey player up there. But I was rebellious. Yeah, I was. I really was. Anyway. So anyhow, so let's see. Let's keep the thread here. So I got back. I ended up in college. Literally, the mail. Back then, they used to just send you. I don't know what we would send them. I guess an SAT score or something, and you would be inundated with all these promotions from all these colleges that would take you.
Oh, wow.
And I had no interest in going to college, but my mother said, "You got to go to college. You got to go to college." And so one of them was from this place called Emerson College in Boston, and she said, "Oh, my friend Peggy's son went there. You should go there. Try that." And I said, "Okay." And
she knew Boston would be a good fit for your rebel ass.
I guess she did. And I went up there, and I had a girlfriend whose brother was a senior at Tufts. He was an actor, and he had been in India. He had been playing Hair in the play Hair in India for the summer. Some traveling tour of Hair.
That had to be an experience.
Well, he came back, and he had a dump apartment up in Porter Square, and he needed a roommate. And so when I showed up at school to sign up, they said, "Well, where are you going to live?" I said, "Oh, I got a place. I got a place up in Porter Square." And they said, "Oh, okay." So I never had the dormitory experience. And I lived in that apartment for about 7 years up there.
Oh, wow.
And I got through college, and I went to work, and I went to work for a guy named Stuart Cody, who was a kind of MIT media genius guy. He had a place in Somerville, a shop. And I said, "I'll do anything. I'll do it. I'll do the toilets, whatever you need. I just want a job." He had 2 mixing rooms, film mixing rooms, and various services. Did a lot of rental of audio equipment, of Nagras and things like that we were just talking about. And his claim to fame was he had developed something called a remote start slate system, which was a wireless. This was a big deal back in 1975, that enabled these guys like Dickie Leacock and all these documentarians out of Harvard and MIT, the Kon-Tiki, the recreation of the Thor Heyerdahl boat that this guy built to replicate what could have been done 1,000 years ago, and then sailed it, from Peru to Europe or something. Anyway, it was equipped with 3 16mm film cameras and the little Nagra tape recorders and this remote start slate system. So while he's out there in the waves, he can push a button and the cameras will all start.
Oh, awesome. Right. It was kind of like the first
it was really
self-timer.
It was really crazy stuff.
Yeah. So for anyone that doesn't know, Emerson is an arts college in Boston.
Well, it was a speech school.
Oh,
it started as a speech pathology school.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it did. And then it went into radio, television, theater, of course. But speech was their thing. You could go to some of these teachers could tell exactly where you were from after you just talked to them for a lot less time than I've talked to you already.
Oh, wow.
They could just tell the regionalism, and they could say, "Oh, you're from Southie," or you're from Worcester, or you're from, wherever it was, Wyoming.
Right.
And so that was my college experience. My teacher was a guy named Vinny DeBona, another famous guy. Vinny was a newsman. He shot film for WBZ, and he taught it there. And he went to Hollywood, and he invented Entertainment Tonight.
Oh, wow.
And he invented America's Funniest Home Videos.
Wow.
So he created this sort of dream television show where all the content was free. People sent you the content for the phone.
That's an amazing
and
thing.
It was just such a beautiful model, like, wow, that really is taking it easy, man.
Yeah.
And, you got to just do the intros, the outros of the whole thing. Anyway, Vinny is obviously very, very successful.
So did you go there not realizing that you wanted to get into like TV or film?
No, I was totally into it. I was a photographer. I had a dark room in my crummy apartment in Porter Square.
Okay. So you were kind of in that artistic realm before going there.
But it was more. It was more process oriented for me. There was no sitting around writing scripts. It was sort of more about shooting film and developing 4x5 negatives and color printing and just understanding all the mechanics of a film production process.
Okay.
I was very much into saying I want to understand what everybody's doing in the room here, and that's sort of what I did. I kind of just sort of stuck with it. I was a sound guy, and I used to work in the mixing and the post production, and I don't know. I just love that. I still am interested in the gear and how it all works.
So what was your first big project? You went to work for the gentleman that had the 2 audio rooms and
yeah, that was for Stewart, but I didn't. I was just I was a worker bee in the back room there. I got out of that. I guess that when I started to get a taste of what was going on, is I moved out to the Berkshires, out to Western Massachusetts, and I was going to get married, and I did get married out there, and I had a lot of jobs. I worked as a cook for a woman named Miss Ruby in West Stockbridge. I worked as a projectionist at the Mahawi Theater. I was a Massachusetts licensed projectionist.
Wow.
And I was a film editor for a guy named William Greaves, who was in New York City, who had a home there and come up on the weekends. And Bill always had stuff going on. And he really put me to work. I was his editor. I was his sound man. We would go and shoot film all over the United States in things like the people mover systems in airports. When I go to San Francisco, I was here when they were creating that, and one
wow.
in LA, and there was another. Anyway, there were like 5 or 6 cities. We went in 10 days and shot all this stuff, and then came back and cut it up. But that's when I really started getting the feel of it. Enjoying the per diem, getting paid and getting a per diem, and. That's when I really kind of got hooked on it. So it was after doing that for, I guess, a couple of years in the Berkshires. I was a projectionist. I had a buddy who was a projectionist there who worked for this German guy. And he kind of just did a lot of paperwork about television shows that were on every week. And I said, I really can understand this job. And one day he came in and he said, Klaus, the guy's name was Klaus Hallig, great guy, said, Klaus is looking for a producer to go to New York, to work as an assistant producer in New York. And if it works out well, he'll become the producer. Do you want to do that? And I said, yeah, I want to do that. I had no resume. I had nothing. So I just wrote a letter. And I said, I can do this, 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 and this. I've done this, 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 and that. And I went and met Klaus, and Klaus hired me. And the next thing I know, I got an office on 3rd Avenue and 52nd Street, right over P.J. Clark's. And I work for this company of about 8, 10 people that represents the biggest media distributor and creator in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. They kind of ran the German, Austrian, Swiss market. They exported about 50 hours of American primetime television every week.
Oh, wow.
They had deals with all the 6 major studios. They owned the rights to these things in their territory and in other territories. And it was all run by one man. who had made his fortune on the film La Strada, the Fellini film. He had bought the rights outside of Italy somehow for that, with everything, mortgaging everything, and built that into literally an empire. And what he loved was classical music. It was his favorite thing. And he spared no expense and built the largest library of performing arts, classical music in the world.
Wow.
And they were the best. They were the Vienna Philharmonic. They were the best opera houses in Italy and the best musicians. And it was just amazing. And we would sell it to Exxon here in this country for a series called Great Performances on PBS. And I was the post-production guy. So I would get these cans and crates of film from Europe and work with the appointed, whoever they were from public broadcasting, which was usually good, but sometimes acrimonious, and subtitle, essentially put these on American Standard videotape, transfer the film, subtitle them, shoot the sort of interstitial stuff, the interviews with the artist, between the acts or the show, whatever it was, and flesh it out as a program. And I did that for Klaus for years. And we would do a lot. I do, 15, 20, 30 hours, sometimes more, in a season, in a kind of fall to spring season. And then when that ended, I would go off on these, whatever this other producer from Germany wanted to do in the United States, which he had Solid Gold and all these sort of shows. And we would go with the German hosts and take them out and do the German version of like Solid Gold.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so we go to Hollywood and Hawaii and Las Vegas and all these sort of glitzy places that do all the, shoot all the wraparound stuff. So it was a great job. And it went great until Exxon pulled out. When Exxon pulled out, that was pretty much it for me and Klaus.
Oh.
I did work for him for years after. I did projects for him, usually involving someone like Sony or some other group where he wanted someone in there that he knew. It was a great job. He's gone now.
Oh.
But
it sounds like a lot of his work is still out in the world, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's out there. I guess it's all up on YouTube somewhere. But Leonard Bernstein was an artist that was signed to the company. And these were pretty rigid contracts. Lenny made a lot of money. And he didn't do television for anybody else. So I got to know him because he was based in New York. And even this Frederica von Stade, who ended up in Alameda, of all places, she apparently retired here. And I had met her in New York a couple of times. She's a wonderful singer. And so I got to meet all these people, the Domingos and the Pavarottis and the Carreras and all these tenors and singers and musicians, which I loved. I loved the whole idea of going to work and listening to classical music.
That's an amazing job that you fell into.
I just fell into it.
Yeah.
I do nothing about it. I had no knowledge of the classical repertoire. I was, I had heard it. I didn't dislike it, but I was not a musician. I didn't, study this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I just fell into it. More good luck.
Yeah.
More good luck.
Because we had a conversation once where you told me that basically you had manifested your life even without knowing what it was or
I did.
Kind of.
I know I did. And it's so ironic how this all tied together, or so it's amazing to me. I was so moved by the film version of West Side Story, the first movie that came out. I remember seeing it in my town and saying, wow. Not only did they swear in it, which I thought was just amazing, but it was big, it really got me. The whole thing, the colors, the music, the dancing, the whole, and the hoods seemed kind of believable in their own showbizy way, but I really dug it, and it just made me think that there's a way to get in on this.
Yeah,
and it was a very kind of Protestant approach. It was work, work, work. You've got to do the work. But if you keep doing the work, this is going to work out for you. And I watched I loved old movies and all that stuff, and was well versed in everything from Abbott and Costello to Humphrey Bogart. And I just thought someday that I'm gonna make it in this business somehow. I'm gonna make some kind of get a hold on. And it worked out. It was kind of the first time years later, the first time I came to an award show in L.A. was the Golden Globes, and then the Emmys for the making of West Side Story. It was a film that Klaus that we co-produced with the BBC, and I was the guy in New York, and there's some guys came over from London, director and another producer. Great guys, and here I was there. I was sitting there going, "This is quite a little circle you've drawn for yourself here, isn't it?" You know. And then a couple of years later, I did win an Emmy for the Bernstein at 70. So I was sort of tied into this West Side Story kind of
pulled you through the whole.
Pulled me in, and I ended up being involved with Leonard Bernstein and these shows, and I just thought. I think I manifested that. I can't understand how that could have happened just so randomly.
Right.
I just have, I think I manifested that.
I think you did too. I mean, that's an amazing.
It's just, having still remembering being so moved by that movie at the time. And what was it? 60, I was 13 years old, 13 years old.
Right.
And, I hadn't really started on photography. My father had a dark room in Westport, Connecticut, where we grew up. But it was kind of mysterious to me, what was going on in there. But I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I meant when I said about that manifesting. That was the example.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a huge example. And it's one of those moments where like you kind of don't notice it until afterwards. Where you're in that moment at the Golden Globes and you're like, oh, wow, wait, remember when I was 12 years old?
Yeah, I guess. I guess I did the same thing when I put these kids in the car and drove out here. I kind of manifested this future in California for them, for us all.
Right.
And it's really worked out pretty well. I mean, they're remarkable kids, but they're thriving. Mm-hmm. Both the girls got scholarships to UC schools, Berkeley and Santa Barbara, and but they worked up through the Alameda school system, right. Graduated from Alameda, went to the local junior college or whatever it is here, but they got these grades that couldn't stop them. She just kept going and going and going.
Well, it's probably a testament to them seeing you work hard to get what you wanted and. I mean, it sounds like your jobs was a lot of fun. I don't think they saw much of me working hard. I mean, they mostly saw me when I got home and, was ready to go to bed and get up in the morning and go again. I guess they figured that was the work. But right, yeah. Because, I mean, as a young guy and the kind of the balls that you had back then, because not only are you a single dad of 3 kids, now you're going to move them across the
Yeah, I wasn't a
country.
Young guy. I was 59 years old.
Oh.
Right? I was 59 years old. And, I was kind of going out on a limb there.
Yeah. But still, it still takes a lot of courage to say, all right, well, I'm going to take these kids out of the city and into a new place and start a whole new life for them.
Yeah. Yeah. It seemed to be the only thing to do. Their mother was a drug addict and a nurse and just still is wrestling with it all. 14 years later, she's still got problems with it. And I just kind of was like, we're going to do this. I'm just going to make somehow this is going to happen.
Right. Where do you think that determination comes from?
Well, it must be my mother because I didn't know my dad. He was young. I was young when he died. And, I had a very good mother. I really was again, very lucky with that. Mm-hmm. Who I got to know much better as I got older, She just died a couple of years ago at 96.
Wow.
And she was pretty much with it to the end. So I guess from her, she was a girl from Philadelphia, tough town, side of town, and she was a worker.
Yeah.
She reinvented herself. After my father died, she remarried. He got Alzheimer's. She went through that for 5 years with Jack, and then Jack died. And she said, no more marriage. I'm done with that. And she started a kind of career in Florida, got into real estate, got into a good niche of thing, and she did very well for herself.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. I think she was an inspiration, actually.
She sounds like it.
Yeah, she was good.
And that's probably is where you got that determination and the ability to know that you could reinvent yourself after anything.
Right. That's a good thing to remember, that you can do that.
It is, and I think people forget that a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah. I agree. It's sad. It really is very fluid. What you can be out there. It's all in your head. I think your limitations.
Yeah, because I look at you guys. You know, you have a good group of friends at the bar that you go on adventures all the time. You're going to movies. You're active. You're out. You're still living, and kind of reinventing yourself. You're always traveling somewhere new, or
Yeah, trying.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a reminder to me to that I can do more than I think.
Well, that's if we're an inspiration for you to be more active, then good.
Yeah, because sometimes I get into a rut, and then I'll hear you guys are either one of you is traveling somewhere, or you all have plans to go see a movie, or you're going hiking on this one, and
Right.
it's or you just went to this restaurant, and it's oh, I haven't left the island in 2 weeks,
Well, yeah. I guess there are times in life for that, and later there'll be more opportunity
Yeah.
for you to get out.
Well, yeah, of course, but it's also so fun to be able to come in and talk to you guys, because you all have taught me so much, and your stories on meeting Betty Davis and
Oh yeah, that was that was before I went to college. That was
That's what I mean. Your life is just all these little nuggets that you'll drop in, and I'm
Yeah.
you met one of the most beautiful women.
She was something else. Yeah, she my mother had a friend named Robin Brown, and Robin was went to school with Betty Davis at Colby in Maine. And they both went to Broadway, and Robin was a dancer, I think, and they were, chorus people. And Robin got out of it. She married this character. I don't know I can't remember what Al was into, but they remained great friends. And when she would come out in the summer, she'd rent a little cottage somewhere in Westport. And my mother would say, "Oh, Robin's here. Betty, she's going to be, I'm going over there." And it was always sort of around. And I was now a film student at Emerson. This was I think my second year. I was home for the summer, and I was with Dawn, my first wife. And she said, "Do you want to meet her?" And we looked at me, and Dawn looked at, "Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Love to meet her." And so we went over to this cottage, and it was... We were drinking bourbon. I think I remember if it was Jim Beam. Might have been Jim Beam. But she was smoking the Philip Morris Commander, the long unfiltered ones like John's Pall Malls.
Yeah.
And there was a little thing full of kitchen matches on the counters, and I remember her putting a cigarette in her mouth and reaching under the chair. And she said, "You can light them on the bottom of anything. You can light them on the bottom of anything around here. So if you need to light your cigarette." And she was very nice to us. We only visited. Maybe we had a drink or two drinks. It wasn't all about her. It was just visiting with her.
She was just a person.
She was a little, but kind of notable.
Well, of course, yeah.
Kind of remarkable person.
I can only
And when
imagine.
you read about what she did, taking on Louis B. Mayer and all these guys, and just saying "screw you,"
Yeah.
She was something.
She was a trailblazer.
She was a trailblazer. She was. I always talk about people I ended up meeting that were world figures like that. I remember I did a 2-day thing with Henry Kissinger. We had him hired to do a voiceover on a 6-hour documentary, and at the time what we called high definition television, which was before there were high definition televisions. And I spent 2 days with Henry, me and Michael, in this audio studio downtown in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. He showed up every morning, got dropped off, came in, had bagels and coffee, and went in and did his thing. I couldn't really. None of us could really tell what was going on because it was all in German.
Right.
I think he was doing it in German, the voiceover. That's how I met a lot of these people, was doing audio recording, dialogue replacement.
Right. How many different? So what? You worked in the production of all these kind of musical documentaries and things like that for a lot of years, and then you went into advertising?
Yeah, I mean, I ended up, it was the internet. I got, the film thing was ebbing, it was, people were all shooting tape up there. And I had a relationship with a wonderful company in New York called Crossroad Films with Dan Lindau and Dean Winkler, who's still good friends. They're both friends of mine. And Dan was good. He'd get me gigs. I'd get these, commercial gigs, which were wonderful. They paid like, $1,500 a day. And, you had a lot of responsibility and you only had a few days to do this stuff. And we go to like Silver Cup Studios and these big studios and shoot these commercials, whatever they were. And that was dying out for me. I mean, I guess I was aging out of it. I don't really know. Yeah. But I saw the writing on the wall. And when these two people I mentioned earlier from Touchscreen talked about starting this internet company, they wanted somebody that had experience in shooting video because they needed to generate content,
right?
And for their clients. And I was the perfect guy for that. Had my fucking Emmy, and I was like, yeah, we got time. Here's Tom, and he'll take care of the video. And I sat down with Cheryl and the woman, the co-owner, and she said, "Do you want to learn how we do this?" And they were doing games for Paramount, like Star Trek games.
Oh, wow!
And they had this whole thing. What is that language they speak in Star Trek? I can't remember the not the Borgs. The Klingon.
Klingon. Yep.
Yeah, they have a whole language. They did a video game around that where you learn to speak Klingon and all this sort of stuff. And she said, "Do you want to know how to do this? Learn how to do this?" And I said, "Sure." And that began for me what was this getting involved in the production of digital properties, websites, or whatever. And I didn't write code per se, but I kind of could get people that did write code to tell me how long it was going to take them to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Really take them to do it. And so that's how I got into it. I jumped off of the film wagon and got onto the internet wagon, but mostly video stuff. We had big clients. IBM was a big one for the Nagano Olympics. We did a big thing for them. Took about 50 setups over to Japan and created this thing called the Surf Shack, where all the athletes could communicate with the world.
Oh, wow.
Or other teams or other members. And it was a big sort of social media experiment.
I love that you fall into winning an Emmy, then you fall into cutting edge, the start of the internet and gaming and digital. You just really have had this luck that.
Yeah, well, you're right. I agree. I've been very lucky. But at the time, it seemed like it was. I wasn't falling into it. I was kind of
working your ass off.
Trying to
work your ass off and use your contacts.
Trying to figure out some way to keep the bread on the table, and there's a lot to be said for that. Sort of, it's common now, the sort of gig economy, but the gig economy was pretty much how the business worked in New York. You got shows, you got gigs, and you could always tell when a thing was wrapping up a day or two, everyone would be on their phone. They were going to the next thing. And as a producer, you get a little worried about that because you don't want them to leave till this thing's over.
Right.
So they've completed their job on this one.
But it seems like it could have been a really stressful way to do it.
It was stressful.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was very stressful. It's a job that's got a lot of stress in it. And you got to be able to embrace that.
I was going to say, how did you deal with the stress, or is that something that kind of feeds you?
I guess if you don't love it, you just shouldn't do it. And I don't mean you love it every day, believe me, but you have some core, be it you're materializing something, which I guess in a way you are. You're always thinking you're going to, this thing is going to look this way, and it rarely comes out the way you thought it was going to be. But hopefully, it's better. You learn along the way. Oh well.
Yeah. So, I mean, how long did you do the digital marketing for? The beginning of the internet.
Well, it was relatively early. Like I say, it was in the early '90s, and I had another lucky thing I'll tell you about. If you want to talk,
oh yeah,
it sounds like but it's just a kind of funny story, I think. We were casting around, for something that we could create. This is now we're about, I don't know, maybe there's 8, 10 of us in the company, and four managers. There's sales, production, technology, and I guess there were 4 heads. I was one of the 4, and so we all had to pitch our idea, because we're going to spend company resources and time and on creating this thing. And so Cheryl wanted to do a site about Barbies, and I was like, no, you'll never get that. And she goes, what do you mean? And then sure enough, she found out that Mattel was not exactly going to let her do this. And then someone else had an idea. Meanwhile, I'm commuting every day, and busting my ass to get on the 7:05, the 8:05, the 6:30 out of Grand Central out to Westport to get home to kids and everything. And I'm on the bar car. And I said, let's do a site about the bar car. This is like a great idea because this is a global phenomena. People are going home in London, Paris, Tokyo with the same people every night. And there's a certain group of these people that are going to be in the bar. If they got one, they're going to be there. And I said, this is a community waiting to be tapped. And they said, okay, we'll do it. So I wrote it up and sourced some retro 50s pictures off of photo disc or whatever that thing was. You get the pictures for free not for free, but it's a one-time payment. And we launched this site, and me and my buddy Jim, the producer there, would get around and sort of post it up to Yahoo and this and that. And eventually we became a Yahoo site of the day, which was all like, amazing. Wow, everyone got excited. So I keep, plugging away at this. And I had a $600 marketing budget, and I went out and printed cheap cardboard beer coasters with an image of the 50s commuter on it and the URL.
Right.
And I got, I think, like 5,000 of them, whatever it was. And I started going down, we'd go down to Grand Central, and there would be like 13, 14 bar cars leaving Grand Central at any given night. And I'd be on there before they have to deal them out all over on the counters. All these guys I see on the train, they say, oh, I'm going here, I'm going there. I said, take some of these, you know. And they did. They went all Australia, Japan. They and people liked it. So the site suddenly starts to get written up, and it's in the New York Times, and it's in the New Yorker magazine.
Wow!
And the best part for me was the day I got a call from CBS Radio, who wanted to talk about commuter matters. To me, this was all just a gas about these guys getting drunk on the train and taking care of each other and looking out for each other. And so I ended up on the radio in New York City talking about commuter matters, of which I was totally, didn't know anything about. Just saying that I think we should continue the bar cars. They're always under threat. I think they're gone now. I think they have finally gotten them off the New Haven line. That was the only line that had them when I.
Oh, wow.
They were the last ones. But they used to go into New Jersey. They used to go up the Hudson. They used to go out to Long Island. They used to be coming out of New York City every night. And that was a fun one. I still have the URL. It's still up there. I still pay the domain registration, and it's hosted up in Pittsfield or someplace.
Nice. Yeah. I have seen it before. I've looked at it before when we've talked about it, and it's great. I think you should update it, bring it back.
It's definitely Web 1.0. Yeah, it needs a lot of technology overhauling, but it had its things at the time. You could send people virtual cocktails, which were little flash animated GIFs and stuff, and I don't know. I had a pretty good list. I had about 50,000 email addresses stored somewhere. God knows where they are now.
Yeah, or if they're
even still viable.
Yeah.
But that was a fun run in New York to do that.
That is fun. And then you've been on the cutting edge of being like creating those things and being able to send people gifts, and it's amazing that.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Well, you were in it and working, and so it probably doesn't seem as.
Yeah, I guess I just don't feel like it's behind me somehow. I still feel in the midst of a lot of this stuff in my head.
Yeah. Do you still do any of that work? I know
No.
you're mostly retired now,
I do
right?
nothing.
Yeah.
I'm completely useless. I have no function really.
That is not
anymore.
true.
I don't, I don't really have any reason to be taking up space. I'm not really doing that much.
But you worked so
shame.
hard for all those years. Now you're retired and enjoying it.
Yeah, I am enjoying it.
So
Actually. I am enjoying it.
You're setting good examples for people like me. If I work hard, then maybe I can get to retire and travel and hang out with my friends most days. And
yeah, that's a good thing to do. I agree. I'm surrounded by people. My beloved Carol is so focused on just always every day another project, another this. Let's try that. And, this woman is something. She walked into a store in Sonoma last week. It was a beauty product thing, and she said to go. She went, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to offer to work for free. Oh, I'll get paid in product. I don't want to be on their books. I don't want a W-2. I don't want any paperwork. And I looked at it. She said, I would just love it. I could do this so well. And she does. She has worked, all these kind of, as a young woman before her business began and took off. She was a retailer. She could sell anything to anybody. So she's still out doing it. She's 76, for God's sakes. And she's like, give me a job. I want a job. All right.
Yeah, so she works and you hang out and go hiking.
Guess. I try not to feel guilty, but...
you shouldn't, because she's doing what she enjoys and you're doing what you're enjoying now.
Yeah, I know. Everyone says it's important to find something when you get to this point in your life, something. And I just haven't really found anything. I like hiking and, I like smoking some dope. And I like to kind of look around and travel.
Because you and John have now hiked... You guys set out, right?
It'll be 10 years. He told me in the car this morning that we're coming up on our 10th anniversary. The first day I went with them to Sunol was the first hike 10 years ago. I just couldn't believe that.
That's a long time. And you, in that 10 years, you guys have hiked how many different? Didn't you track it?
We have a book. Yeah, we were over 800 miles and of hiking around the Bay Area. And there's a book with all of them. Grumpy Bob made a very thorough documented list of every hike.
Who is Grumpy Bob, and how come I have not met him yet?
Grumpy Bob left us. He moved to Bellingham, Massachusetts, Washington, and he was the third amigo in this whole hiking thing. That he would come into the bar, and he was at the time. Was he retired? I guess he must have been. But he had worked for Wells too, but he was in the security, digital security stuff, and very smart guy and a great musician. He would come in with John. They would talk about this. I would go, "What are you crazy? You're going to go walk in a big circle for 10 miles in a circle? Really? We don't do that where I come from."
Yeah.
Anyway, they talked me into it, and I think. Expecting I would give up. I don't know what they were expecting, but that was it. And Bob been doing it for years. Bob knew all the trails. He'd been to all these places as a kid. He grew up in Walnut Creek. And he would been all these things, and so that's how we got into it. And we all became fast friends from that. We just spent so many. We would meet every Wednesday morning in front of the bar.
Oh, nice.
7 a.m. we meet in front of Z's.
Yeah.
And usually decide then where we're going to go. And sometimes it would be you pick a place, we look for new places. I'd go on the East Bay Trails or whatever and say, 9 miles, okay, let's try that one.
There you go.
And there we go. And we went.
What are your top 3 favorite hikes in the Bay Area?
Well, I'm a big Point Reyes fan. Mm. I'm a big Sunol fan. Sunol is a beautiful, beautiful spot. I don't know. It's hard I can't believe how lucky I am to have this little walk up on the Oakland Hills there.
Yeah.
That if you don't go when the school's starting, I can take you a bit longer. You can be up there in 20, 25 minutes and you can get away from it. You can not hear stuff. It can be perfectly quiet and you're out there. But I guess Sunol and Point Reyes are there are a lot of different hikes there, but those have been the most impressive. We did Big Basin. That was exciting. That was one of our longest ones. That's down near San Jose or someplace.
How long is that one?
I think it was like 13 or 14 miles, something
Wow.
like that. And we were good. I'll tell you, we were all in pretty good shape at the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're all still in pretty good shape. You're still doing it. 10 years
yeah,
later, you're still going.
Not 14 miles, I don't think.
Well, that's all right if you've dropped it down. You still do like 10-mile hikes.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do that.
Yeah.
It's just important to keep moving. That's one of the things. Got to keep moving.
Yeah, I often say that. Like, because I deal with so much chronic pain, I'm always like, I work through it because body's emotions stay in motion. And when you sit in the pain too long, it just makes it worse, really. Because if you're going to be in pain either way, you might as well be out living it instead of just wallowing in it.
Yeah, I'm sorry you have to. You suffer from that. I've been really lucky. I mean, I get aches and pains, but once you start moving, for me, it pretty much goes away.
Yeah, same. Sometimes if I'm sitting for too long, I get up and I look like the Hunchback or Notre Dame or like a decrepit old lady. Yeah. And then 5 minutes later, I'm up moving and you couldn't even tell. But it's just like that transition into getting back to moving. Yeah. Can be a little slow. But so the bar has been a theme in your life too with the...
It has. It has. I don't know how this is going to sound, but there's always been a bar in my life. I had one in New York on 3rd Avenue. Two, actually. One after one closed down, I crossed the street and went to another one. But it's always been the sort of center of my kind of neighborhood base, even though these people in this place were, no one lived on 55th Street and 3rd Avenue, but we all drank there every day for lunch and after work. And it's gotten me out of some jams. It really has helped me out. When I was separating from my first wife, I had to find a place to live, and I saw this thing on a lamppost in New York. Don't ever do this. That says, apartment for rent, and you tear off a little thing with a number on the bottom. So I tore the number off the bottom, and the apartment was literally around the block from my office. I said, "This is perfect."
Wow.
Not much of an apartment, I guess. And so I meet the guy, look at the apartment, give him a check, and this is all supposed to transpire in the next week or 10 days, the end of the month. And that comes, and the guy doesn't get out of the apartment.
Oh.
And he's taking the check. He's got the money. And after a week of excuses, he's suddenly not making excuses anymore. And I was worried. I had a lot, going on in my head, of course, all that was going on. And I go over to check the building to see if he's there. And one of these situations where someone's coming out of the building, the door's open, and I go in, and the next thing I know, I'm standing at his door, and his door is not locked. It's open. Oh. It's like ajar, So I'm there, and I'm confronting him. And he's essentially telling me to, fuck off and
right.
stuff. And I took his watch. I said, "This looks like fair collateral for me.
Yeah.
All right, you can have this back when you give me my money back." So then I go off to work, whatever, and I'm working over across the city at an audio room over there, Matrix, where they ended up doing the Jon Stewart show. That's where that was out of that, that stage on 11th Avenue. And I get a call, and it's from my office. And it's the police have just been here.
Oh.
And the guy had filed a assault robbery, and assault. Anyway, we thought you should know. I said, well, thank you. So I pick up the phone and I call the bar, and the night door guy was a New York City police detective.
Oh.
And he was a guy named Bill Clark. And Bill's was quite famous because he ended up being the technical consultant for a TV show called NYPD Blue.
Oh, yeah.
And Bill moved to Hollywood, and Bill went, but before he was this, he was a night bar guy, the doorman. And I call him up and I talk to Bill and I said, Bill, this is what happened. This is what he goes, you got the watch? I go, yeah, I got the watch. He goes, bring me the watch. I said, okay. So I go back across town. It's now 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And I hand it to him and I say, I'm an idiot, but this guy stole my money. And he says, I want you to come in early tomorrow. That means you got to get really early. I want you to be at the precinct down here at like 10 of 7.
Okay.
And I want you to go talk to and give him the watch. I said, okay. So I come in, I go to this empty police station, relatively empty, and see this detective, and he takes the watch, and I start to tell him, he goes, no, I heard. I said, okay, all right. He says, we'll let you know. And I think it must have been maybe 24 hours later, I had a postal money order for the money on my desk at work. It had been dropped off there. So I bought Bill a nice. He was into his neckties. I bought him a nice necktie or two, Brooks Brothers. He liked that shit. And that was the bar was to save my ass, literally, in this case. I mean, I could have ended up in Rikers. So yeah, I've always had a bar in my life. I think they're great resources if they're not abused.
Yes.
You meet interesting people sometimes, and it bars do nice things. They have softball teams and do stuff.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of them. There's always been a bar in my life too. Yeah. And I think when you get to see, like, especially a neighborhood bar like ours, where it's like you get to see the community, you build friends. I see people meet there all the time that then are friends for years.
Yeah.
And it's a good, and someone doesn't show up, you notice, and you're like, where are they? Are they okay? It's a nice community feeling.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think people sometimes forget that happens with bars.
Yeah. Geez. What was that friend from England, the guy that used to sit down at the end of the bar? Graham, right.
I only got to meet him very briefly, but he was
a crusty old character. He was. Graham was not. The more you got to know him, he wasn't that likable. He was charming in his way.
And he had the accent, so it helped.
Yeah, he had the accent.
That always helps in America.
But he was a character, and he was like found because he was missed. So where's Graham? Have you anyone seen Graham? No. Well, let's go look for it. And they go over and there's Graham lying on the floor in his apartment for day 2.
Yeah.
And they found him. So it is a good thing. It does provide that.
It does, and I think it's sometimes the pluses are way more than in a bar than the minuses. But it just has that negative connotation by so many people because it gets abused so easily.
Yeah, it's not a private club. It's open to the public. So you never really know necessarily what's going to happen in there. But that's its liability and that's its beauty, I think. The fact that it's wide open.
Yeah.
So anyway, where were we?
We were talking about you being in the TV production. Well, you went from the TV production to the digital marketing. And then is that how you got into kind of like working for the banks, is doing their digital marketing?
Yeah. No, I was. That's exactly what I was doing. I was. One of my longer contracts with Wells Fargo was building something called Your Loan Tracker. This was a phone-based thing that allowed people to modify their mortgages and essentially screw up their entire life on their phone at the bar. Their whole mortgage, everything. They could mess it all up right at the phone, right on their phone. And it was building these tools. Some were public facing, some were internal into the bank, and then some advertising. I did some work on the Wells Fargo website, stuff like that. Sort of redos of the checking area, and it's all about team building and collaborating and getting buy-in. So.
What's your favorite tip for getting someone to buy in that you've used over the years?
Well, I guess it depends what they're concerned about, what their point is. There's only 3 dials on the machine, I think, as I recall. There's a cost, there's time, and there's resources, and you can twist the dials. If you want it sooner, then you're going to have to add more resources, and that's going to make it cost more. And if you want, and I can just tweak these things all, away. So you can have what you want, but it'll take more time, or you can have what's here and save some resources for the future. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's all a matter of what the circumstances calls for. But it's not that complicated. There's only so many variables, and this is what you're playing with, In advertising, a lot of people just want everything tomorrow.
Right.
And that's where some discussions begin. I want it all, and I want it now.
Yeah, so it's about getting down to like the brass tacks of it, and then distilling it down to those three knobs. And
yeah, it is. The people that do it know that. There are a lot of wonderful. What was it? The AICP, something commercial producers, American independent commercial producers, these long budget documents that literally have a column or a box for every possible expense you can imagine on a given situation, horses and boats and this, whatever is, it's in there, and I used to love it. I thought that was just the greatest thing in the world, you could actually grind it so fine, that you could really, figure out what something was going to cost. And of course, you always add a contingency. But I like that part of it. I did enjoy that part of it. The timing. I'm very obsessed with time. I'm really schedule driven in a way that I never thought I'd be in my retirement.
Right.
I can't explain it. Carol laughs at me about it, but on Thursdays I come down to Alameda from Sonoma, and I usually leave Sonoma around 9:00 in the morning, and I always, get my coffee there. I always, get a muffin there. I always take a leak there. I always eat an apple in Marin. I have this routine.
Wow.
And I'm really kind of enslaved to it. I don't even notice that I'm doing it, but I look back and I do that a lot about my life. I wake up in the morning and plan a day, and I really think of exactly how long it's going to take me to do this, where I'm going to be at this time. And I don't know if it's a curse or if it's somehow making my life easier. I don't really know. Carol's not like this at all.
Yeah, I'm not like that at all. I actually have just been thinking about that. Like, I don't have a regular daily routine because my schedules are always changing and things. But I'm like, maybe if I did a regular routine, it would help me in some of these aspects of my life. And I've never been a routine person.
I don't do it every day because I don't have that much going on. But the days that I do have stuff going on, I have absolutely down. You know what I mean? I've really, it's crazy to me. If I have to, do something like travel here or travel there, or, today go on a hike, do the shopping, I do kids shopping, I take a shower, I'd be here at 2:00. When I get out of there, maybe I go to the log at 4:00. Maybe I go, you know what I mean? I've got this whole thing already in my head about what I'll do, where I'll go.
I wonder if that comes from being in production for so long.
I think it does.
Where you have to have like a checklist to make sure it all gets done.
I think it does. Because there's always this sort of potential for people's hair to burst into flames, and it's always good to have a sense of like, well, this is really where we're at,
Yeah.
And we can do this and this and this if we, and meet this deadline if we, but I don't know. I just, maybe it's a defense mechanism of some kind. I don't really know.
Well, it seems to be working for you.
Oh, it does. But it makes me, think I'm kind of crazy to have it. But it does work for me. It does work for me.
Does Carol appreciate your scheduling, or does she get annoyed?
She thinks it's amazing. She just thinks it's amazing that anybody lives like this. Anybody does this. She laughs. She does. She just calls me this Libra who has all of this time management capability. I don't know.
So how long have you two been together now?
I think Carol and I are going on 9 years. Maybe.
Oh, wow. So you met her and your hiking buddies at almost the same time for this phase of your life.
Yeah, I mean, I've been 5 years in California, about that 5 years in California. We started hiking early in 2024. Yeah, I guess I did. I met Carol on the internet. And in another one of these weird things, I went to visit her, and her apartment was right across the street from the office that I was sent to when I came to San Francisco on day one.
Oh,
On
wow.
Second Street in San Francisco, right across from where my office was, and which I just thought was so strange. Yeah, it's been about 9 years. Remarkable person. I think she's on her fifth house since I've known her. I don't know.
Wow.
She just does this. It's just amazing to watch her.
She rehabs houses.
Kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She does.
She's not volunteering to work for a retail store.
Well, she seems to. You're right. It doesn't seem to be enough time. Maybe because this house is pretty much getting done that she's now doing all this other. But she's out, networking and trying to get colored jobs and this job and that. I'll help here.
Yeah.
I'll help there. There was this restaurant that had been abandoned or was not occupied in front of this kind of chintzy mall on the corner of Sonoma Road, this big Route 12 up in Sonoma. We drive by it for months and months, and Carol just looks like, what a mess. They got to do something with that place.
Right.
And now, next thing I know, she's got the guy's phone number. She's on the phone with him saying, I'll do all the color for you. I'll tell you what color to paint this thing. And she's done this, whole blocks of San Francisco. I've seen
wow.
There are CVS's and apartment houses and all these. Carol's got these photographs, and she's got the things from the paint store, the sample chips and the numbers and everything. She's putting them on there, and she hands it in, and that's a deliverable for her. She gets paid for that.
That's awesome.
And she said, I'll do this for this guy. And I guess when he gets it together, he'll call her.
Right.
But she's not passive about this. She's really, if she sees something that she doesn't like to look at, she's going to do something to change it.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
And the fact that she's gotten it done. Because
Yeah.
there's so many people that talk about it, but for her to actually pull it off and get them to paint it. And,
Yeah, she feels she has a responsibility to raise the value of the real estate property of her neighbors.
That's a great neighbor to have.
I'm going to make my place really nice, so your place is going to be more valuable.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And if you want any help, I'd be happy to help you.
Right. Because then it just makes her place even more
Right.
valuable.
Right.
That's a smart buesswoman.
It's very smart. It's very smart. Again, not my kind of brains, but very smart. I agree. I never would have put it together like that.
Ooh. Yeah, but you've put together so many things that, you have your creative brain too.
I do have mine. I do. The only way I use it at the moment, though, is in a very limited way. When I go to the log, I have this archive of skyscapes from this one position on the bay.
Oh.
That features the skyline of San Francisco in the corner usually, but mostly it's all about the sky and the light and the bay. And that's been really fun for me. I have I like to do that. I really there are certain objects in the world that I like to go and photograph.
Yeah.
There used to be actually two of them are outside bars. One of them are those two old stately palm trees on the corner opposite Z's.
Yep.
And that house there.
I have a couple of shots of the moon right there.
Yeah, and then there's a catalpa tree outside of the back door of the bar that I go to on Tuesday nights in Sonoma. When Carol's on her phone, she has a phone meeting every Tuesday night, and I'm cut loose. So I go to the dive bar in Sonoma.
I didn't know you were cheating on me in Sonoma, Tom.
No, it's okay. I only got 90 minutes. I'm out. There are calls from 6 to 7:30, so it's short. But I always go out in the back and take a picture of this catalpa tree because I had one in our front yard in Westport and I miss it. It's a great tree.
Do you share those photos anywhere?
No, I don't. In fact, maybe somebody will hear this and help me figure out how to really organize them. Carol thinks I can sell them.
I bet you could too.
She thinks these are definitely marketable things.
Yeah.
She encourages me naturally,
Of course.
to do this, but I don't know. It's this digital stuff, and I can't print it in my own dark room. And I've had some prints made, and I don't know. I haven't figured out how to do it in a way that gets the result that I like.
All right. I bet you will find you someone that can help with that.
I hear there's some people that are out there that do this. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll find one.
Do you still have a darkroom?
No.
No. I was going to say they're hard to find now, other than maybe community colleges.
I don't think you
or colleges and universities.
Even buying the chemicals. I mean, even buying film to me is I don't know where you'd even do that.
Yeah. And I remember there was some event that I had a bunch of those disposable cameras, and it took me, like, I had to mail them away to get them developed instead of just bringing them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought it's so wild that you used to be able to do this anywhere, and now you can't.
I know.
It's hard to find.
I know. It's an archaic medium.
But we were talking about this before we turned the mics on, about how when you see something that's on film, it has a different feeling and a different vibration than when you see a print made from a computer.
Yeah, it definitely has a different feel. I mean, just to hold it and manipulate it and get familiar with it.
Yeah.
When I was a projectionist at the Mahawi, lots of films, all kinds of art house stuff, all the stuff, and you're just dealing with literally miles of film every day, you know, and I loved it, you know. I just loved it. But I was an editor too, and that was a lot of that in editing, a lot of hands-on stuff. It wasn't electronic. It was, you know, glue and splicing blocks and, you know, all this. It was a whole different, well, it's old technology.
Yeah, it was an art. I mean, and not that it's not an art now, but it was just a different kind of art. Yeah,
well, you know, it was a area of the business that was really dominated by women.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the early film editors were women.
Huh, I never knew that.
Yeah, there are a lot of famous filmmakers had women editors, and I should remember some names now, but I don't. But they were women, and they cut the film.
Huh.
Back in the day.
Yeah, probably because they had the patience for it.
Maybe, or the organizational mind.
Yes.
For it. But it was an area that they covered. Not that they're into it yet. I mean, not that they're into the industry yet.
Right.
On the New York Times today, there was about a pathetic percentage of women behind camera in the industry down there in Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, even now it's mostly male dominated. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, we're getting better, but it's sometimes when you look at the numbers, you're still like, how are we still so far behind?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't explain it. I couldn't. I could never get into the whole that aspect of the business, the real commercial theatrical film production. Even rock and roll I've had bad experiences in dealing with deals with those kind of folks.
Right.
Met some great people, but artists, but not. It wasn't right for me.
Right.
I wasn't a good fit for that.
You enjoy the classical and the.
Yeah, I enjoy all the music, but there seemed to be less. Fewer poisonings and.
I was going to say politics, and you went to poisonings.
Yeah, I think these guys have slipped me a Mickey once on a job in London.
Oh wow!
But they got me out of the picture for about 4 or 5 days.
Wow!
But that was rock and roll. That was another thing. I got to meet a Beatle though. I got to meet George. He was involved, and Eric Clapton and Dave Gilmour and. It's John Sanborn,
wow.
the saxophone player. It was a piece of music that was written for him. Concerto for Saxophone by Michael Kamen. You know who he is?
I don't.
He's a New York guy, but he writes film music. He wrote all the music for the Lethal Weapon movies and
wow.
Die Hard and Terry Gilliam's Brazil. And Michael was a great guy. He's not with us any longer either, but he wrote a nice piece of music, classical trained Juilliard guy, for Sanborn. And It ended up being a deal with Pioneer Laserdisc at the time. It still makes me slightly nauseous to talk about this deal.
It was that bad.
It was that bad.
Wow.
They were all great. The music was fine, and all the artists were great. But my co-producer was a sociopath.
Oh.
Anyway.
Yeah. I mean,
we move on.
Yeah. What was your favorite project that you ever worked on?
Well,
It sounds like you've had so many, but is there one that is like the crown jewel for you?
the favorite one to work on. Well, I enjoyed working on the Bernstein 70 show out of Tanglewood. That was good because that was a nice, wonderful place to work out of. And it was right near where I had lived just a couple of years previously as a cook and a film editor and everything else.
Right.
I was in West Stockbridge, Tanglewood's in Lenox. And I used to see Seiji Ozawa at the coffee shop in the morning when he was coming in, and I was going off to cut wood somewhere for money or for heat instead of for money. I would be working for cordwood. And so that was kind of fun to go back there and do that show and have that conversation with Seiji about that. Do you remember me? I used to. Yeah, I do.
That's another full circle moment.
That was a kind of full circle moment. So I like that one a lot. It had a lot of great people in it. Victor Borga. I remember, meeting these characters. You know who Victor Borg is?
I know the name.
He's an old act. He's just like this clown, and he's Danish, and his act is kind of the discombobulated conductor.
Oh, yes,
orchestra.
Yeah.
But he's quite musical and quite knowledgeable about all this. But he was in it. But there were lots of people in it that were famous and fun to work with. They all did a nice job for Lenny. No, I don't know. I just like to work. I just love to work. It was nice.
Well, I guess we'll let you get back to your schedule for the day.
Thank you very much.
But thank you so much for coming and talking to us about.
It's been my honor to talk to you about it. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I love hearing these stories, and I love that I get to keep them going for a while longer and to know them.
We'll see. It's funny. It's a funny experience for me to do this, and I forget that I'm doing it, and then suddenly I remember I'm doing it, and it kind of slows me down. It kind of jams me up a little bit.
Oh, well, it's fun to have someone that I talk to and hear so many stories from, then come here and see the difference of having a mic in front of them.
Yeah, I'm not usually on this end.
You seem a little bashful, which is fun.
Well, that's
because you're usually the one doing the audio and the behind the scenes and the probing.
Right. Yeah, I'm more the directing guy. Can you say that again, please?
Yeah.
You're off mic. Please say that on mic, please. Yeah.
Oh. No, well, thank you. And I hope you will enjoy the audio from this.
I look forward to it.
And give me the critiques that I may need.
I look forward to it. I think I should listen to it alone.
Oh, yes. We'll let you listen to it alone before we let the rest of the world chime in.
No, I mean, before my kids hear it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tom. And thank you all for listening.
Okay.